This is Israeli Technology Founders Speak, a podcast of conversations with successful Israeli high-tech and biotech entrepreneurs. With your host, Avraham Hermon. Anat Shani, the CEO of Synchrony Medical, and Dr. Moshe Ashkenazi, one of the co-founders, spoke with Avraham about their wearable biotech product, the LibAirty, which is a home-use airway clearance system to help patients with chronic lung diseases maintain clear lungs with short daily treatments. Avraham sat down with Anat and Moshe in the offices of Synchrony Medical, where they discussed the challenges of growing a startup, what's unique about building a startup in Israel, standing out from the competition, the role of patents in their business, tips for startup founders, and much more. This podcast is a creation of J.M.B. Davis Ben David, an intellectual property law firm serving clients around the world. You have great innovations. We keep them safe. It's not enough to just have a great startup idea or innovation. If you don't legally protect your innovations, products, and brand, anyone can claim them as their own. We keep your great innovation secure. Learn more by going to jmbdavis.com. That's jmbdavis.com.
Welcome to Israel Technology Founders Speak. I'm sitting here with Anat Shani, who's the CEO of Synchrony Medical, and with Dr. Moshe Ashkenazi, and he's the co-founder of Synchrony Medical, and also a pediatric pulmonologist and the deputy director of Safra Children's Hospital at Sheba Medical Center. Thank you very much for inviting me to your offices, which are in the beautiful MedX Accelerator in Or Yehuda, which is a suburb of Tel Aviv. What problem does Synchrony Medical solve?
So we speak here about the population of people with chronic lung diseases. Those patients suffer from recurrent episodes of pneumonia, of lung infection. Mm-hmm. And actually they produce a sputum 24/7. And this sputum must be cleared out from the lungs, otherwise the patients can deteriorate. So LibAirty is a next-generation device, physiology-based algorithm that actually is designed to clear the airways from the smallest airways where the sputum is found and to clean the lungs of those patients and allow them to breathe freely.
Mm-hmm. So what sort of patients? Suffering from which diseases?
So we speak about millions of patients. It's mainly patients with COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. It's the chronic lung disease that affects mainly smokers. Mm. We speak about patients with bronchiectasis, which is a permanent lung damage that was following a severe lung infection or pneumonia. And we speak about patients with rare lung diseases like cystic fibrosis, primary ciliary dyskinesia, patients with immune deficiency. All those patients' populations suffer from recurrent lung infection and they need respiratory physiotherapy on a daily basis.
And your device, the LibAirty, performs that physical therapy on a daily basis?
Yes, our device is an automatic device that it can perform an effective respiratory physiotherapy without human touch. Actually, when we developed the device, we cloned our chief respiratory physiotherapist and we copied his work one-to-one, and this is exactly what the device is doing.
So, Anat, can you address how the device works?
Sure. So the device is a wearable vest that applies compressions on the patient's chest according to a specific treatment algorithm that is designed to enhance secretion movement, to move the sputum from the smaller airways all the way up where it can be cleared easily. So the entire idea is to imitate what a chest physiotherapist would do with his hands by applying this sequence of compressions, which is synchronized with the patient's breathing cycle. So we have sensors within the system that make sure the treatment is adjusted and personalized to how the patient breathes and reacts to the therapy. In addition to that, we have a guidance app that provides feedback and instructions to the patients during the progression of the treatment. And all of these components together really imitate the different aspects of the treatment method as if a real chest physiotherapist was there in the room. So you can imagine the vest mimicking and imitating what a physiotherapist would do with his hands. Our algorithm and our sensing capabilities process what he sees and thinks and adjust the treatment to the patient. And our app provides the feedback as if he's there in the room with a patient, encouraging him to do the treatment properly, all the way through. So all of these components together really take the different principles of the therapy into a device to enable the patients to receive the therapy in their home independently, as if they're treated by the best physiotherapist out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds pretty impressive that you can save, I guess, in addition to travel time and the inconvenience of going to a physiotherapist, actually the cost of the physiotherapist, which was probably pretty high.
Definitely. This is something that is, looking around the world, there is no coverage for patients being treated manually by experienced physiotherapists coming into their home or even coming to a center where they can be treated on a daily basis. However, patients need this therapy every day. So even if it was possible to cover for that, and that's obviously something the healthcare system cannot support, we don't have enough physiotherapists or chest physiotherapists out there that can deliver such treatment, let alone that most of them are not able to deliver this high quality treatment that is based on decades of clinical development and experience from the Sheba Medical Center, which is what we put into our device. Mm-hmm. So we are really bringing the most experience or high-end quality out there into the home setting to make, I would say, the best treatment accessible to all patients, regardless of where they're located, if they're lucky to live close to an experienced center or in rural areas where they cannot even access high-quality care.
If I may add,
Sure.
If you look at the forecast of the WHO, the healthcare industry is facing a big crisis. There's going to be a huge shortage in medical personnel. And the WHO speaks about shortage of 18 million physicians and nurses in 2030. And
Wow.
If we look at the respiratory physiotherapists, this is the biggest crisis that's going to be. There's a huge shortage of medical personnel, and exactly solutions like LibAirty could change the picture.
Mm-hmm. So could you speak to a little bit about the stage that LibAirty is at in terms of authorization?
The company started to operate back in October 2020. Following the pandemic, actually, maybe it's a good time to describe how we even started with this idea.
Sure.
And then we can lead to where we are today. Moshe, if you want to just give the background of Synchrony's formation.
Synchrony's formation is very interesting. It was during the first wave of COVID. We speak about March 2020, April 2020. We learned new words like isolation, lockdown. And we were sitting in our empty outpatient clinic in the Safra Children's Hospital in Sheba Medical Center, and the patients didn't come. And one after the other, patients called us that they are deteriorating. Not only that they didn't come to see us, the physicians, they didn't get their respiratory physiotherapy. Mm-hmm. And those patients are getting from the state, from Israel, one respiratory therapy daily treatment at home. Mm-hmm. And they stopped inviting the physiotherapists to their house because of lockdown and because of isolation. They were afraid to get the COVID. Mm-hmm. And we saw that they are deteriorating one after the other one. And then we started to thought about the solution. What kind of solution can we give those patients? And actually the solution that we gave them, it was clear to us that we solve with this solution a much bigger problem. And the problem is the unmet need of the whole millions of people in the world that needs this daily respiratory physiotherapy, and they do not get it.
Mm-hmm. So that's interesting that out of this pandemic, this idea was born, and potentially lives are going to be saved based on this idea, based on this development.
So from those days where the thought was specifically about the patients in need at the time of the COVID crisis, of the outbreak of the first wave, and the realization that there is a much larger market and a much greater need worldwide, that's where we understood that there is a reason to form a company around it. And the company was formed actually by a collaboration between the Medics Accelerator, which is a medical device incubator, which partners are Boston Scientific and Sheba Medical Center, which takes unmet clinical needs or ideas from very early phases and really builds companies around them. So with this idea that there is a need to deliver high quality airway clearance in the home setting, and the first prototype of the device that was established during these days to solve the need for the patients Dr. Ashkenazi is referring to, from there, the idea was to form a company. And the company is now operating as part of the Israeli Innovation Authority Incubator Program. So that's how we started. From these first days, we went through the process and we really built the company around this need and around this idea to develop what was there originally a very rough prototype into into a device. And that's what we did since the company was formed in October 2020. We developed our first version of the product, and we took it all the way to clinical trials, where we've done our first clinical trials at the Sheba Medical Center with CF patients and with bronchiectasis patients.
CF is cystic fibrosis.
Cystic fibrosis, yes. Both patient populations who need this kind of treatment daily, as we explained before. And we were able to show the ability of the device that we've developed to really clear secretions in a very good way. So the company has now completed its first clinical trial, and we're preparing for our next one that will be in the U.S. To target the U.S. population.
So I know, Moshe, how you became involved in this, because this is your idea with a few other co-founders. But Anat, maybe you can explain a little bit how you became involved with this idea.
So I'm a biomedical engineer. In my professional background is actually development of wearable medical devices. So my career has been focused on developing devices from very early stages all the way through testing, clinical trials, submissions, and that's how I gained my experience in this field. And I've also studied for an MBA, the focus on innovation entrepreneurship. And after a while, I felt like I want to join a company from the first days and take my experience and build something new. And that's how I was connected with the founding team through the Medics Accelerator, which, as I mentioned before, builds companies around these needs. So they introduced us together with other co-founders, Gil Sokol, who is the leading physiotherapist at Sheba, and Professor Ori Efrati from the Sheba Medical Center, along with Dr. Ashkenazi. We started to work on Synchrony.
Okay, now just to switch gears a little bit, what role do patents play in your business strategy?
So patents are obviously very important for us, being a technology company in the field of medical devices. So from the very early days, we made sure that our patent strategy really covers our core technology on one hand, and also I would say additional directions and ideas that we have for future products. As the company has originated from actual clinical experience and significant clinical know-how, we've managed to take these into, I would say, relevant IP protection, and we are working with closely through this as the company progresses to make sure that we are in place protecting our IP.
Let's talk a little bit about difficulties you had in the process of bringing this idea from an idea to the market.
Sure. So the product is not yet on the market. Developing a medical device, there is a long process that need to go through regulatory approvals before you can really market the product. So what we've been doing till now is really making sure that we're focusing on developing the right product. It will be a product market fit. On one hand, make sure that we are aligned with what user needs, which are our patients. So since day one, we're very closely involved with patients throughout the development process to make sure that the device really fits their needs. Also, on the other hand, to make sure that it will be aligned with the regulatory requirements. And what we've done is a strong partnership that we have in place with MegaOfek, which is a medical device manufacturer here from Israel, which enables us to make sure that we're able to, it's a development and supply agreement where they are supporting our production of the system. So we are covering our ability to scale up manufacturing and production. When we do reach the phases of commercialization, our product is already able to support the growth that will be required.
So this is going to be a blue and white product.
Definitely.
Idea from Israel, manufactured in Israel all the way through.
Definitely, with the support of the Israeli government through the Innovation Authority.
So you mentioned the funding from the Israeli Innovation Authority and the Medics Accelerator. Maybe address a little bit the whole pathway to funding.
So as I mentioned, the company started by the support of the Medics Accelerator, which the incubator program provides funding for the first 2 years of the operation. With a specific plan and milestones in place. Mm-hmm. So we're still within this phase of the incubator period, and we're able to be very, I would say, capital efficient in achieving significant milestones with a relatively small budget for this seed phase. And we're now actually in the process of raising an additional funding round to support our future activities, which will be a trial that is planned to start in the U.S., and our FDA submission to receive clearance, and really be able to start marketing the product.
Mm-hmm.
So we're now actually fundraising, and whoever listens to us and would like to join, then welcome to contact us.
That would be an added bonus to listening to this podcast.
Definitely.
So can you talk about any additional advantages relating to being part of the incubator program?
So part of the idea behind the incubator program is that the incubator team has relevant expertise and capabilities needed to develop medical devices. Specifically, the medics team is from this field, whether it's support regarding R&D or whether it's in the business side. And the incubator has strong partnerships already established, which really support the founders and the companies through this process. So it's a very, I would say, useful track for founders or for innovators with ideas and need just to get things going quickly, and very focused to achieve significant milestones in a short period of time with limited resources.
So as you know, this is a podcast focused on Israeli technology. What can you say is unique about startups originating in Israel, in particular your startup, Synchrony Medical?
It's a good question. Israel is a fascinating country, and one of the most fascinating things about Israel, in my eyes, in my opinion, is the engagement of the surroundings to startups. It is quite natural here, especially in our hospital, in Sheba Medical Center, that you come with an idea and you want to start your own startup. We get an unlimited support from the hospital. We have an innovation center located inside the hospital, and the atmosphere is pro-innovation. And that's exactly was the atmosphere in the April 2020, during the first COVID wave, when the innovation center in Sheba, it's called ARC, was initiating a startup program or initiating an accelerator inside Sheba to accelerate ideas that can support the COVID fight. And it was amazing to see the atmosphere there and the engagement of all the surroundings from Sheba Medical Center and from other government offices that were around us. This is the most fascinating things in my eyes in Israel, the engagement of the surroundings.
You want to expand on that at all?
Yeah, I think, Synchrony is a great example of the collaboration Dr. Ashkenazi is referring to. We're talking about something that came out from actually a medical institution with relationship to the industry, support by the government. This entire program and this entire operation is something that is not really seen in other places. And it really excels, I would say, innovation, and it helps propel companies and get things moving quickly and efficiently. And that's something very unique about this ecosystem here.
What tips do you have for founders who are starting just with a new idea, with a new company? How do you suggest they start? Where do they go? Who do they look to for help?
I would start with, when you have a new idea or starting a new company, you really want to make sure you're asking the right questions and speaking with the right people to understand, what's the real need out there, what's the problem that you're trying to solve, and make sure you're developing it into the right direction. Get out there, learn, ask, have your doubts with answers that you receive. But at the end of the day, you're seeing the entire picture and really need to make sure that you're putting your efforts at the right place. So I think that's very important in the early days when there's so much to discover and so much to decide, to have a clear vision of where things are.
I would aim my words to the scientists and physicians in the crowd and to the medical students. Innovation became integral part of medicine. I don't see any future doctor that is not dealing with innovation in healthcare. And we are now initiating a revolution also in medical schools, in the medical faculties, in order to bring innovation to be part of the program of medical school. It's an integral part and it must be taught in every medical faculty in Israel and in the world. Mm-hmm. So my advice to those people is just open your eyes. Open your eyes. The hospitals and the clinics are full with unmet needs that can be solved, not easily, but can be solved definitely with the advanced technology today. We are surrounded with very, very talented engineers, programmers, biomedical engineers, people that are engaged into the system and can help us find solutions for a lot of problems that we face on daily life.
Okay, great. That's great advice. Where do you see your company down the road in the long term? Right now, you're at the very beginning of the process.
We have great faith in LibAirty and our ability to really change the way patients receive airway clearance therapy today. And, down the road, as I mentioned, we are aiming for our next clinical trial in the US, leading to a regulatory submission and really start to get the device out there for patients who need it. And I would add to that the basis of our technology or I would say even the principles of how we address airway clearance has a lot of potential in other, I would say, use cases or incidents. Dr. Ashkenazi can add to that within the respiratory field. We know we're starting with this direction, but we have a much wider, I would say, approach as to things that we can really change and impact within this space.
It's actually like Anat said. I will speak in the name of the other co-founders as well, Professor Ori Frati and Gil Sokol. When we thought about Synchrony, we thought about a vision. And the vision is to let every patient in the world breathe freely. To have the ability to breathe freely without coughing and without lung infections, without pneumonias. The device itself is part of our vision. We think that we can bring more, to invite more medical devices that will enable to fulfill our vision to bring it to the world. There are millions of people in the world that need these solutions.
How is your product unique and what makes your product different?
Unlike devices that are out there today, there are airway clearance devices in use and on the market for over a decade. However, our technology is different. It operates on different principles of airway clearance to get the mucus from the most affected and the smaller, which are hardest to clear airways. And our focus is completely around that. And what we do is by clearing these airways, we can enable patients to receive a more effective treatment and a shorter one, because the treatment burden for these patients is significant. Think about doing it every single day, sometimes twice a day, for 30 minutes, for an hour. And by delivering an effective treatment that gets to the smaller and affected areas, we can reduce the burden patients have to go through and increase the compliance to the therapy over time, which is a significant factor for patients with chronic conditions which need to commit to this kind of treatment every day.
I think what's beautiful about LibAirty is the simplicity of the idea. We took our chief respiratory physiotherapist and we cloned him. And actually we work on physiology-based principles that implemented the latest cutting-edge respiratory physiotherapy elements, and we use them in our device.
So this sounds great. It looks like there's a lot of potential here for Synchrony Medical and a lot of potential for patients in need of effective and convenient therapies. So I'm wishing you a lot of success, and I hope you succeed in bringing this product to market and helping a lot of people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That was Anat Shani and Dr. Moshe Ashkenazi of Synchrony Medical. We hope you enjoyed this episode. There are many more to come. Do you have a great innovation or startup idea? We'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us by going to our website, jmbdavis.com. And if you go to jmbdavis.com/startup, you'll see we have a special site specifically made for startups to help startups protect their innovations. Please be in touch with us and find out how we can help you. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode.